Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Student Insider podcast. I'm joined again by Alex, but also today we have a guest. If you would like to introduce yourself, Hannah.
Sure. Hey guys, my name is Hannah. I'm in my third year of neuroscience at King's College London, and I'm currently studying neuroscience and psychology, looking into the etiology of mental health disorders, such as anxiety and depression. Things I like to do in my spare time. I like to code. I really like creating websites. It's kind of like, my side hobby. And I'm also started to learn how to play basketball. And, for all you short kids out there, it's possible to, to make a bucket. You just have to try a bit harder, but you've got this. And I have a really cool page called Incrementum.
Yes. Yeah. So let's give a little bit of context. That was a great introduction. I feel like we got like a summary of everything that's going on. But the funny thing is that we were supposed to have Hannah on the podcast like 2 years ago when we first
I'm joking.
made the podcast, but it never really came to fruition. I'm not sure. I guess things got busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, now here you are. And the reason that we wanted to bring you on is because of, as you just mentioned, Incrementum, which I'm not exactly sure how to define it, but I guess kind of like a self-help platform is the kind of gist of what I picked up. So if you just want to maybe give like a bit of background into exactly what that is.
So first of all, in case some people might be confused, like why did I call it incrementum? So incrementum is the Latin word for growth. And I chose Latin not just because it sounds fancy, but maybe because it sounds fancy, but also just because, to me, even though Latin is a dead language, it still forms the foundation for other languages. And in the same way, I feel like, your past experiences, even though they're not here now, they're gone, they're in the past, they kind of still form a foundation for who you are now and what you've become, because they're lessons. And Incrementum for me is a page not necessarily to kind of define how to have good mental health, because I think there's no such definition. I think it's different for different people, but rather just to show people the realistic aspects of life. It's okay to be messy, it's okay to fail, it's okay to sometimes not have great mental health and to feel down, because a lot of the time I feel we have such a I don't know, overly positive perception of how other people live their lives, and that's not necessarily the case at all. And I think, another important part of my page is just to encourage people to believe in themselves more. I feel like we don't believe in ourselves enough. And, we don't often say those positive things about ourselves, such as, saying that you love yourself or saying all of those things which, are genuinely positive. There's almost this kind of shame in doing so. And I think I just kind of want to encourage people that, you are capable of a lot more than you think. So yeah, hopefully I didn't waffle on too much, but that is essentially what Incrementum is about.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah, because when I first saw Luke's notes, I was like Incrementum. I was like, oh, what does that mean? So I googled it. Then I was a bit confused. So I was like, okay, it's from Latin.
Oh, my bad.
Then I realized there was a link to your Instagram page, and I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense now. And then I was having a look at it, and there's some really interesting stuff on there.
Yeah.
So why did because I remember when it was back from my notes when we were originally supposed to do this, I saw that you had a blog as well. So
yeah.
So you have a blog and an Instagram page. I was wondering, why did you decide to start creating content?
I like doing both. I suppose when it comes to writing, I just feel like it takes me a lot longer to kind of, formulate this kind of cohesive piece of work. I also felt when it came to expressing myself and expressing those kind of personal experiences, I think Luke mentioned that you kind of get rid of the emotion when you're writing sometimes, or it doesn't come across as clearly when you're writing. So I kind of felt in a way, recording myself kind of allowed me to express those kind of, more vulnerable moments in my life, as opposed to blogging, which I think, was more expressing the kind of philosophical interests of mine. So yeah.
No, it's really fascinating to me that, having gone through, probably a lot of experiences, but the first thing that you think is oh, I'm going to start making content to help others.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there was a moment where you just thought, you know what, I think this is the kind of message we need to be putting out. And do you think there's anything that kind of lacks in, I don't know, maybe like modern society or maybe at university?
I mean,
Sounds
you
of
know,
that.
like I kind of feel like for a very long time, like I wasn't a very transparent person. I just felt like I was constantly trying to be someone that I wasn't. I felt I just felt very unhappy, and you know, that's not a great way to live your life. I think a lot of the time we just see these perfect images of people's lives and you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And I think that's kind of why I wanted to start my page, because you know, we don't talk about depression enough. And I know, you know, there's definitely an improvement, as opposed to, you know, I don't know, like 20 years ago or something like that. But you know, depression in one word does not does not show the complexity that occurs and how varied it is across different individuals. And you know, like some people ask me, like, you know, why are you so comfortable with talking about it? And I think the question is like, why aren't we comfortable? Because those are real things, those are real emotions and things that go on in our lives. And it's just a real shame that, you know, we feel so much shame towards it. And I kind of wanted to, you know, try and be transparent as possible so that it can kind of encourage other people to speak up, instead of feeling this kind of like guilt for, sorry, this guilt for like feeling something which, you know, some other people also experience too. So
Yeah, no, I think the first thing for me is it's so like, it's just amazing that you can be so like transparent with your emotions. And it sounds like from before that you've had quite a bit of like a growth over a period.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting that this kind of like these kind of topics are so stigmatized. I mean, the first thing that I think about is something that I have written about, which is toxic masculinity. But that's obviously a lot more focused on men specifically. So
Yeah.
maybe there's some like sort of parallels in the kind of like female side of things as well, maybe that I'm not as aware of. I mean, being male, so you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I totally get that. I feel like as a woman, something which I've experienced as someone who has anxiety is, you know, stop being sensitive. And I think that's a very toxic thing to say to someone, especially someone who cannot control their perception of certain things, or someone who, you know, the thing with anxiety, right, is like it can be so overwhelming and crippling that, you know, it's kind of like you want to not be sensitive. Like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to respond this way, but that's just what happens. And so I think there is this kind of like, you know, idea that, you know, people who have anxiety are weak, people who have anxiety are really sensitive. And I think that's wrong. I don't think, you know, it's ever right to call anyone weak. And I think just having some patience with people is really important, rather than just, you know, jumping the gun and being like, yeah, come on, you know, grow a pair or something like that, you know. Like, I think it's important to realize that these like illnesses are real and it's sometimes not in people's control, I'd say. Yeah.
I think it's definitely one of those things where unless you've been through it, you don't really have the understanding. And it's very easy for someone who's not sort of had like really bad anxiety to just be like, oh, why are you so anxious? Like, it's just talking to someone. Like, I can do that just fine. But again, you can't really draw those like comparisons between people. I find it's like you are your own individual with your own abilities, and there's just never any way to like compare yourself. And I think it's quite a toxic thing to do that, and it's a very natural thing to do as well. So I think we're quite naturally competitive as humans, so I think it's quite natural to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said was right, that, you know, sometimes like you don't understand it unless you've gone through it. Like, I remember like when I was like younger, like I had a friend, and I was in year 8. I had a friend who was like suffering from depression, and I just didn't understand, like, why do you feel sad all the time? What is it? And I couldn't comprehend, you know, like that feeling of like emptiness and not wanting to get up in the morning and just not having any self-worth, until I went through it myself. So it's definitely something which I'd say is really hard to understand, which is why I think it's important to talk about them, so that, you know, I think, you know, a lot of the time, when you read stories about depression and stuff, it's quite sad because, you know, you feel very misunderstood. And a lot of the time there's this kind of like blame towards friends. Like, something which I don't quite like is when people say, yeah, like, if friends aren't there for you, then like during depression, it means they're not real friends. And I think, you know, first of all, like, depression is very complex and it's very hard for people to understand. And, you know, it's always good to have friends that are there. But I think it's just a reminder that, you know, it takes time for people to understand these things. And also that people are also going through their own things as well. So I think it's very important just to like bear that in mind when it comes to just understanding depression, and why it's important to have those kind of resources out there, you know, to help people understand. If that makes sense, I hope.
I think that resources are more important than I mean, having a good support group is definitely important, but one thing that I've kind of understood recently is that everyone kind of has their own cocktail of emotions and experiences, and you're the only person that can ever fully appreciate that. It's like, I can tell you how sad I'm feeling or how happy I am, but you'll never be able to actually feel how happy I'm feeling, for example. So I think it's very much, if you know someone that is going through these things, or you are yourself, it's very much I don't want to sound a bit like rude saying this, but it's your own battle.
Yeah.
And you know, you shouldn't try and like fix someone's like emotional burdens for them. It's very much like your own process, something that you have to do yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess touching on that, the thing that's interesting to me is that, I mean, you're having like this tough time in your life, but what was there just like a moment that you can remember where you're just like, you know what, that's it, I'm just going to read and try and figure out what's going on, and then obviously led to Incrementum and everything else you've done?
I mean, so I think it was like during like the first lockdown, and or the second, I'm not sure. And I was just feeling really down. Like I couldn't be bothered to get out of bed. I was like starting to feel like I wasn't talking to anyone. Like I wasn't eating, wasn't showering, nothing. I just felt really down. I just didn't see the point. Like I just didn't care anymore. And I feel like, you know, if you knew me from before, like, you know, I love to learn. I love to do so many things. Like I was so excited about life. I was such a like bubbly person. And then like that's it, like gone. I felt like so numb. And it sucked because, like, you know, like I didn't want to feel like this. Like I didn't want to feel like I didn't want to feel like in constant pain. I didn't want to feel like, you know, there's no point in life. I didn't want to feel suicidal. I didn't want to feel that way, but I did. And like, you know, I think what started to help me was, first of all, like, so my mum was a really big support system for me, and you know, we'd go on loads of walks, and that really helped me. I think with depression, you form this kind of association with your room, and like the more you stay in your room, the more you kind of have these negative associations and these negative feelings. And so it's really important to do things even if you don't want to do them, like go outside for a walk, do something different, because otherwise you kind of end up trapped in your own mind and your own thoughts. And when you're trapped with your own negative thought processes, it's like there's no one to tell you, hey, that's not real. You're just trapped with them. It's like a vicious cycle. And so I started, you know, going on walks. And then, you know what, I said, let me just delete social media. It's clearly not helping me at the moment. It's clearly reinforcing ideas of perfection. And I'm not feeling happy. Every time I go on Instagram, I feel sad. So what's the point? So I just deleted it for a while. And I think that gave me a lot of space to really think, okay, Hannah, what is going on? Why are you feeling this way? Why are you feeling like these kind of negative perceptions towards yourself? And you know, the more I started thinking about it, like it took like, I think it's like a journey, right? Like you don't just wake up and be like, hey, I'm not depressed anymore. Like that's not real. Like I think, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, it took a lot of walks, a lot of thinking, you know, a lot of watching videos, really rethinking why, or retraining the way I thought of myself. And I remember, like, you know, like I remember like at one point, because I was feeling quite self-conscious about like how I looked. I remember one point just looking in the mirror, I was like, why do I care so much? Like, you know, like life is so much more than, you know, just like caring about how you look and, you know, caring about how other people perceive you. And I think that was kind of it wasn't my light bulb moment per se, but it was one of my light bulb moments where I started to realize, like, you know, there's way more to life. There's way more to my abilities. There's way more to who I am than, you know, how people perceive me and, you know, how I look. And I suppose like from there I started like healing and like growing, and I suppose that's kind of how it started. Yeah, it's quite hard to summarize your depression. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying like to summarize the whole thing, but what was really interesting in that is the social media aspect, because me and Alex, we talk about social media on here so often.
We've talked about it like a lot, especially the last few episodes, and we've talked about, like, both of us have gone through this process similar to how it sounds you have, with just deleting social media and spending a lot of time off it. Like we were just saying before you joined the call, is that like I'm not seeing your Instagram message because I rarely check Instagram.
Yeah.
Like I don't have that, like nowadays I've got very much the intentionality kind of aspect of social media, checking it. Like I don't have anything any social media installed on my phone, unless if I want to put like a post out, or I know I've like want to like send a message or whatever, but like I moved all my messaging over to WhatsApp, and we've talked a lot about this before, and like it's just really interesting how that, do you feel like taking that time away from social media had like a massive impact on you helping get over that depression? And also like maybe like did it help you like create that time to like focus on yourself instead of like consuming all this like outside content, you know?
Yeah, definitely. You know, like I think the way I see it is like, why are you posting an image of yourself? And when you ask yourself that question, like, why am I posting a picture of my food? Why am I posting a picture of myself? When you really think about it, there is no logical reason apart from, you know, that kind of dopamine hit you feel when you do post that, for posting it. And I suppose like that's kind of what I relied on before. Like I remember like me and my friend, like in I think first year, we were like, yeah, let's take loads of nice pictures. Like I want to look really nice in these pictures. Like it sounds so cliche, and I'm just like rolling my eyes right now because like, why was I thinking like this? But like I suppose there's this kind of obsession with having like, you know, this perfect image put out there of this perfect life, you know, like, oh yeah, like holidays and like makeup and food and wow, like this is all amazing, but it's not real. It's not real. And that's, you know, I think that's like really important to realize. I think I also think as well, like it's important not to have like a rigid perspective, in my opinion. I feel like, you know, there are certain things like you said, like posting your content, or like, you know, for example, to me, like for some people fashion is art, which is why they post on their Instagram, because, you know, that's their way of like, you know, displaying their creativity. And so I never want to have like a rigid perspective on social media, because I think it's different for different people. But I think I have quite a firm perspective on just like posting yourself, because I just don't feel like it's good for you. I don't think you're getting anything good out of it. It's like an addiction. Like I just think, you know, getting away from that, it just, I think you're bombarded with all of these different opinions and all of these different, you know, like, I don't know, like fashion styles and, you know, all of these different concepts. So you don't ever get to take a step back and think, hey, like, what's my opinion on this? Or what do I enjoy doing? Like that clarity, you know, that you get when you're just like off. It's like, you're like, what? It's like you literally feel like, wait a second, like this is what life is like. Like, why wasn't I doing this before? Like, this is great. But yeah.
Yeah, like there was this I was in London around Christmas time, you know, when they have like all the stores and everything, and we were walking past, right, and we just see this person like taking a picture of this food like in their hand, and then I was thinking, like we were speaking about it, I was like, I wonder if that person just bought that food to take a picture of it, you know. Like
yeah,
it's like, it makes you think, are people changing their decisions based on external factors of social media, you know?
yeah, definitely. Like also just, I think, you know, you realize that you weren't really living, like you're in that context, you're not really living life for yourself. You're living it for this kind of external, like unobtainable perfection, and it's not real. And that's why you're never going to be happy if you keep doing that, because, you know, like the standards will change, and so you need to change what you're doing. Like you may have to take pictures with another kind of food, I don't know. Like I suppose it's just, you know, I think it's just very, very, very unhealthy and and it's very easy to get addicted to it. I think especially, you know, like I don't know whether you guys like felt this way. I think maybe it's more of a girl thing, I'm not sure, where you see like, you know, like constant like posting of images and all of that. Yeah, I think I feel way more confident and way more happier just like avoiding that, because then I'm not seeking other people's validation. Like it's important that you rely on your own validation, and if you haven't got that, there's no point in posting. You're not going to get that by posting pictures. But yeah.
We've actually mentioned on here before, I think in the last episode actually, about kind of online identities. And I think the thing is, and it's where the very toxic aspect of social media comes in, is you build up this version of yourself online who looks good in every photo, who does all these like amazing things. And then you kind of have that contrast where you're this like imperfect human. Yeah. And then you also have this online version of yourself that's perfect. Yeah. But when you can't meet those expectations, which you're never going to every day, you just drive yourself to like insanity, into just like feeling really down because you can't be like the perfect version of yourself, which in reality isn't obtainable. It just happens to be a collection of perfect moments for you.
Definitely. You know? I like that. That's really nice. I think, yeah, I mean, that's kind of why like I created Incrementum. I feel like, you know, like even just to me, right, I feel like just recording myself looking messy, or like, I don't see the point in, like, I know some people do this where they put on makeup and then they go in to record a video, but to me, like, why do we do that? Why can't we just like look scruffy sometimes? Because we are gonna look scruffy sometimes. You're not gonna look like a A-class model like all the time. And I think that's what we need to normalize. Like, it's okay to like record yourself looking like an absolute mess, because who cares? Like, so look, like, it's normal, it's natural. And I think that's what we need to start doing more. Like just being more transparent. And that's hard. Like, it's not easy to, like, expose your vulnerabilities. I suppose that's, where like practice makes perfect comes in, I suppose.
Kind of frightened me a bit that there's people out there that will put on makeup for 5 hours to take a picture and then take it off.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I've heard, I don't know anyone personally that does that, but just the thought of someone doing that very much petrifies me.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, like, again, like, maybe like they're self-conscious, or sorry, I don't know whether that was me, but yeah, maybe they're self-conscious, and that, there are, obviously it's way more complex than, like, just be yourself. Like, obviously there's, like, way more to it than that, and it takes time to be able to, feel comfortable in your own skin. So yeah, I suppose it's just like a journey that, like, you just need to take yourself on, and it's like, slowly exposing yourself to things, I suppose. Like I don't know, like, I'd say, like, me, like, recording a video where, like, I haven't put much effort into how I look, just doing those little things and doing them, over time, will slowly build up your self-confidence to the point where, you don't really need people's validation anymore, because you've got your own. And I think that's, I think having your own validation and respect is really beautiful once you've got it, because, you're able to do so much more, and, you're able to have much better, like, communication with people, rather than just constantly trying to people please and think about what to say and rely on people's opinions. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like with a lot of things, it's like kind of like a compounding effect. It's like for the result, it's like for example, when like say you're talking about confidence, it's just like a lot of little things over time. Yeah. And I think sometimes you might just have, like, for me, for example, it was like I was looking, like, it's like looking back and saying, oh, I've done all these things. But in the process of when you're looking forward, you wouldn't see that I had like an increase in confidence. But I remember there was a point, I just remember thinking about all these things that happened over time and think, oh, okay, I'm a much more confident person now, but I would have never known that by doing each single thing. It was kind of like accumulative over time,
Yeah, definitely. Like, I agree. I feel like, I think that kind of links to just everything in terms of, like, growing as a person, but also just, like, in developing skills. I suppose, like, we kind of had this concept that, like, I think in society, like, we kind of want to rush things. There's this kind of, like, work super, super, super hard and then just, like, obtain the skill. And I think it's important to know that, skills are complex, and it's important to take your time, and that there are different kind of processes involved, like a cumulative compound effect, where, like, I don't know, when I started playing piano, I remember I wanted to learn this really complex piece at first. I clicked on this tutorial. I was like, yeah, okay, I can do this. So, like, I memorized all the keys, and then, like, I ended up memorizing it and I started playing it. But, like, it didn't sound like how I thought it would sound like. And that's because skills and just concepts in general take time, and there are different levels to those skills, like rhythm and dynamics, not just pressing the keys like I was thinking. So I suppose, like, again, like, I think everything in life, in terms of, like, learning how to be confident, in terms of learning a skill, everything is, like, a gradual build up, and you'll, like, gradually get to the point where you're like, yeah, wow, like, I'm confident, or I'm a better pianist, because it's kind of like a compounding effect. I feel like I kind of waffled there, but you get the gist. So it's cool.
I think a really good mindset to get yourself into is always sort of putting yourself in that, like, ignorant seat, even if you don't think you are. Like, say if you want to say, like, I'm a confident person, it's not really good to, I mean, obviously there's scenarios where being confident is a good thing and having that confidence is good, but it also doesn't open you up to any more growth. Like, how do you know you can be more confident, or, but I feel like if you always take that position of, okay, I don't think I know enough about this, you always open yourself up to learn more. Yeah. I think it's quite easy, I guess, just with, like, pressures from other people and seeing how successful everyone is. It's like, I don't want to show that I don't know how to do this. But, and it's the same, like with, like, the piano. It's like, if you, I mean, I'm not saying you're terrible at piano.
What? I'm doing that.
Yeah, but, it's like, you can say, yeah, I'm good at piano, but if you leave yourself in that like space to learn, instead of being like just like showing off on social media and whatever, like, oh, I'm so good at piano, you can always just be like, oh, there's always something more I can learn, there's always something new I can do with piano. I think it's just a good headspace to get in.
I definitely think, you know, there is no like, I think, you know, I think that is one of the things that Marcus Aurelius actually said, like, even once you've like finished like accomplishing the thing which, you know, you wanted to accomplish, there's still always going to be more for you to learn. And I think that's really important, like, to, you know, don't limit yourself in terms of how much you can learn, because the world is big, man. Like, there is so much to learn, like and it's exciting, like there is so much to learn, and there's so much like unlimited potential that you can unleash if you just, you know, like just continue working and have the right mentality, and, you know, don't put this kind of cap on yourself. I've noticed I've done that a lot, where I'd kind of like put a cap on myself and kind of in my head just define my abilities as like, you know, hey, I'm uncoordinated, so I'm not going to play sports, and I'm not going to do this because, like, you know, I'm rubbish at them, why would I do it? And, you know, having those kind of absolute concepts, absolute ideas of yourself kind of absolutely like caps, if you like, kind of like, you know, really inhibit your growth. And you know, it's important to know like how sorry, the neuroscience of me is coming out. I was going to say plasticity, but the I mean, how capable we are of, you know, change and growth. So yeah, I totally get that.
You say like just in terms of, I guess, just general advice from where you were like maybe a year ago or maybe even a month ago to where you are now, is there anything that really stands out to you as like a light bulb moment, as in like, you know, this is something that I should have been doing a while ago? Because, you know, you've done a lot of reading, like you mentioned Marcus Aurelius, the meditations. Is there anything in particular that really stood out, or anything in general? It doesn't have to be something like monumentous, but anything recently as well.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there are a couple of things. I think the first thing is that in terms of like, you know, establishing a routine, we often see on social media that, you know, like we see this kind of perfect routine, like wake up in the morning and you drink water and you do all of these nice things and you do it every day. But the problem is that in life, spontaneous things happen. What if you wake up late? Or what if you have to go rush, like, I don't know, to collect a package or whatever? Like, you have, like, I think the important thing is that, you know, we shouldn't rely on like rigid ideas or concepts, and rather, you know, like kind of develop, you know, the ability to be adaptable. And I remember, like, I think it was Seneca, one of the Stoic philosophers, who used to, like, you know, only eat bread and restrict himself from like all other things in order to kind of adapt to not having everything a certain way. And I think that's really nice, like, to kind of have that ability to, you know, not rely on perfection, but rather be able to kind of change, just like in Taoism, actually, where, you know, like the flow of water, like kind of, you know, instead of like, you know, like it's kind of like going around the rock and above the rock and below the rock, but it's able to kind of change. And I think it's really nice, because, you know, like, even though water is very soft, you know, it can still go past, like, you know, the hardest of objects, rocks and boulders, etc. And I think that's a really nice concept to have. So I think, you know, philosophy has really helped me a lot, especially Eastern philosophy and Stoicism. Those are like the two branches of my favorite philosophies. But yeah, what about you guys? Like, what you guys have any advice?
Well, advice in general,
just all things that you've learned like in the last month or year or whatever.
So for me, for example, is that, like, I was thinking about this earlier actually. So I've recently so I have a YouTube channel. I haven't made any YouTube videos for about 8 months or so. And before then, I would pour loads of time into a video. Like, I'd spend like 20 hours editing it. Like, I want all this footage to make it like have this like fancy text on the screen or whatever. And I would like put things off, like exercising or like going for a walk, just so I could put the video out on by a certain like imposed deadline that I created for myself. And more recently, I was like, no, you know what? I've been working on a video for like a couple of weeks, and this is like a kind of like switch that's happened for me. Is like, oh, okay, I put in my schedule that I'm going to like exercise this amount of times a week. And usually before I would just like delete it from my calendar and say, okay, I need to finish editing. But like for me now, it's been a complete switch where I would be like, okay, I'm going to put a higher priority on this thing. And because like I stopped enjoying the things that I really enjoyed because I wasn't making time for other stuff. And now that I've not putting as much pressure on like making videos or whatever, it's come much more enjoyable for me, I think.
Yeah.
And that's just something I guess something's happened for me recently anyway.
I guess because like when you have a timetable, right, it's literally just a piece of paper with some blocks on it, and you can just move those around whenever it suits you, which is a good thing. But also in this case, it sounds like it's been quite a detrimental thing, as in you kind of, you're actively having to avoid these things that you enjoy because you have like this other things going on. And I think that's maybe one of the issues with timetabling, is that I guess, yes, the flexibility is good, but also you should keep some stuff like super glued down.
Yeah, I think also, like, I think in terms of just like things like prioritizing studies over like just going on a walk, or just like, doing something just to relax. I think, you kind of feel guilty, like, oh, I shouldn't be walking, I should be revising. But, I think it's important to always set aside some time to, just look after yourself. And because, you're actually only human, like, you're not a robot, you're not expected to be studying or like video editing for the whole day. Like, I think again, it's like bringing in some more philosophy. Is kind of like the whole like balance of like yin and yang. Like, if you do too much of one thing, like, like, okay, let's say basketball, right? So if I like obviously shoot the ball too harshly, it's gonna like bounce off the backboard and it won't get in. But if I shoot it too softly, it's not going anywhere, is it? It's just gonna bounce right in front of me. So it's important to, have that balance in your life. If you like you said, if you edit your video for too long, it starts to become less enjoyable. If you don't edit it at all, then you have no video. So
I like the basketball philosophy, because I've been playing basketball for years. So for example, on that topic, it's like for say a skill, right? If you just focused on one part of that, you're not going to be any good. So like, say you just became the best free throw, the best person. Like there's this video on YouTube of like this 70-year-old that can like score 100 free throws in the world, but he doesn't know how to rebound. He can't jump high. He can't shoot 3-pointers. He can't do like a simple like layup or hook shot or whatever. It's like having that wide variety of skills within that skill is kind of like how you build that skill better. Said skill like 100 times, but there you go.
Yeah, like skills within skills within skills. Yeah, like skills cubed. I don't know, but I'd say I totally get that. I think I think when maybe like since A levels, I really neglected like a lot of my hobbies and focused a lot on studying. Like studying literally became like my whole life. And like I remember like I was on the train and I was just chilling. I was like, oh yeah, I have to study. And then like I bumped into someone and like we started talking. And then like he was like, yeah, like, so what are you doing? Like what have you been up to? Like what are you doing for fun? It's so weird. I genuinely couldn't answer the question. Like I find that crazy. Like now I'm thinking about like I genuinely did not know what I wanted to do for fun, but also like I wasn't doing anything for fun. And that's kind of sad. Like, to live life and not actually enjoy it, to be constantly stressed. And we have this like very, I think in my opinion, it's very toxic to, be like, yeah, work really, really, really hard, don't sleep, and you'll get a reward at the end of it, because you don't know whether you're going to get a reward at the end of it, first of all, because life is unexpected. And second of all, like, how do you know that's going to be worth it? There are so many things, like when the build up to the end of exams, and then the end of exams comes, you're like, oh yeah, okay, end of exams. You thought it would be this big thing, like, whoa, end of exams, but it wasn't. And I think that's, sometimes that it's important not to rely on, things which you cannot control, and to maintain your happiness in this moment where you can control it. So I think I don't know what my original point was. I tend to waffle a lot, but hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing. I think in just a modern world, in a modern context, everyone's just fighting for survival, to be the best, to achieve everything they can. But the problem is with the achievements is that if you don't enjoy the process, once you get to that end goal, say, I don't know, you're doing a degree because you want a degree, but you don't really enjoy it. You get to the end and you get your like certificate with a first on it, yay! And you have like, maybe you might feel happy for what, a few, like 30 minutes, an hour, and then you compare that to 3 years of just pain.
Yeah.
And where is the reward? Like I mean, obviously you've gotten like a degree now, great, but that 3 years of your life was just hell.
Yeah.
So I think it's very much, I think, a thing that kind of one of my like big philosophies has been, I think there's a lot of more enjoyment in the little things day to day than there is in the big long-term goals.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite easy, especially in a modern context, to get lost in just trying to get these achievements and kind of forgetting what it's like to be human, you know. Like you said, it's like you just kind of lose like what you're doing for fun, and it's like, where is the fun? It's just like you're supposed to be enjoying the process, you know.
Yeah, totally. I think, you know, though, I think a lot of the time when people are like deciding what they want to do, like during, you know, year 13, I think the problem is like, you know, sometimes you just don't know what you want to do, and so you end up choosing a degree. You're just, like you said, you're just doing it for the sake of it. However, like I feel like, you know, if you are doing a degree and you don't know what you want to do, I don't think that's the end of the world. I don't think, you know, that's it. Like I'm going to be a failure. Don't know what I want to do. I'm not going to earn money. You know, I think you're going to probably change jobs like many times in your life, and you don't know what's going to happen in your life. You might find a new interest. Man, I find interest like every year, like that. Like I don't know. There's like so many things out there, and so I think, you know, it's important that people know that, you know, it's not the end of the world if you don't know what you want to do yet. Like you're still so young. Like we're so young. Like why are we stressing? Like we're actually young. Like we actually need to chill. Like we're actually young people. Like let's chill, because I think it's so unfair how much pressure we put on ourselves. You know, I actually watched the video on the School of Life, and it was like, what's wrong with being ordinary? And when I first listened to that, I was like, what? I don't want to be ordinary. Like I want to be like the top of the top. Like, but like when you really, really think about it, like what is wrong with being ordinary from time to time? Because that really and truly, that there is nothing wrong with it except us putting severely high standards upon ourselves and expecting to maintain them all the time. When sometimes it's okay to be ordinary. It's okay not to know what you want to do. Like that's okay. So I just think it's important not to put so much pressure on ourselves. Like we're literally human. We need to relax. Like we're young. Like we just need to take a chill pill and vibe, because we only have one life. So yeah.
Absolutely. Sorry to interrupt there, Luke, but
no, go for it.
It's like I've been working on a video, and there's links to this, so that's why I'm going to mention it. So I've been working on a video about like I call it like a video for those feeling lost in their 20s. I think it's like quite relevant here as we're like all in our 20s. Oh, nice. And I was wondering, I could get like actually both your thoughts on this topic. Like what is like a piece of advice you would give someone that's like in their 20s and they're like, but they're feeling lost, they don't know what they want to do. Like it could be career wise, it could be like any aspect of like life in general. Like what would like a piece of advice be for someone that's feeling lost in their 20s?
Oh, should I go?
I can go first. It's up to you.
I don't mind. So you go through it.
Yeah, so this is something that I've been thinking about very much recently, and it kind of stemmed from a book I'm reading called Homo Deus by Ivano Harari. It's a very cool book. I'd recommend it highly. And it kind of talks a bit about, well, I mean, just in general as well, like about meaning and exactly what meaning is. And the problem is that modern context, sorry, this is like my whole thing with the articles, just like, is that we all have like this individualism where everyone is given like the sort of the power to do what they want to do in the world. But the problem with doing that is that it kind of leaves you with the responsibility to decide where meaning is in your life. Whereas before, it's, I mean, like just say if you're like religious, for example, a lot of your meaning in life comes from faith and belief. But if you don't have that, you're very much left to your own devices. And it can be very scary. And I think it links a lot into career as well, where I think the thing is that you can say to yourself, you know, what, I mean, if you're in your 20s and I mean, let's say you're halfway through a degree and you're hating it. It's like, I mean, you can finish the degree, sure, but you don't have to do that for the rest of your life. It's, you have like, because if you was to question it, like, I don't like this degree, but maybe you like something else. Sure, it might be a bit more risky. Like, oh, maybe I really want to start a business. I mean, even if the business doesn't work out, you're probably going to be happier because you're doing something that you actually enjoy. So what I find would be a good bit of advice is to just ask yourself, like, what are your goals, your motivations, your ambitions, and then just keep asking why until you reach like a dead end. And then you'll just like strip your like life down to exactly what meaning is to you. It could be being happy, it could be money. And then that's when you can start like evaluating the roots of exactly what's pushing you forwards, and then kind of work your way back up.
I mean, I think it's kind of go on. Sorry. I really relate to that, because I remember like in my first year, I don't know if you remember this, but like it was like the end of the year and everyone was talking about internships. I was like, oh my gosh, like internships. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like I was stressed out because I was like, I don't know if I want to go into biochem, but I'll just apply for stuff anyway. But I think that's when I started panicking. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What do I want to do? And, I started like rushing and applying for things. The problem with just rushing is that you don't get the time to really think about, hey, what do I want to do in life? That's an important question you need to ask yourself. Like, what is it that you enjoy doing? And it could be anything. Like, you shouldn't limit yourself to like, the typical kind of respectable jobs, because I think every job is respectable. If you're good at something and you're passionate about something, you can make money out of it. I firmly believe that, and I think it's important that just, I remember like I walked like to like my local park almost every day, and I just started writing down like, Hannah, what do you enjoy doing? And I was just like, okay, yeah, I mean, piano's pretty cool, but can I make money of that? I don't know. I'll write it down, and then I'll start writing down a whole load of stuff like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm an okay speaker, I'll write that down, okay. And like, you start learning about yourself. That's, I think, the first step. Who are you? What do you enjoy doing? And then the next thing is, okay, if you didn't have to make money, if money was not a problem, just money on the side, don't think about it, what would you do? Because I think that changes things. Because I think it's very easy to answer that question as opposed to what do you want to do? Because when you factor in what do you want to do, you're thinking about, is this a respectable job? Will my parents be happy with this? Will I be able to earn enough money? And obviously earning money is important. I'm not trying to neglect it. You need money, but it's also important that to identify what you want to do, because that will motivate you to make money. And that, I think, that is the easiest way to make money. If you're like, as opposed to just aiming to make money, having something that you actually want to do will probably help you make more money, in my opinion. But yeah, that makes sense, I think. But
yeah. Absolutely. Like, I remember that I was reading The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and it's a very interesting book. And he talks about, say like you hit this point of where you're like, quote unquote, financial freedom. If people are listening, don't go much into that rabbit hole of financial freedom, because there's scammers out there. But on another note, anyway, like say you have this thing like, okay, you're making enough money, and like you don't have to work as many hours as you had to before, but that you've killed yourself working. But then, like, what do you do with your time now? Like, because you've just focused on the monetary, you focus on the money, you haven't focused on like what you're really interested in. Like, say you're like 40 or whatever, and like you spent all this time, but like now you don't you don't have as much energy as when you were like 20, and it's like, well, what do I do now? Like, it's like this story of, so like when people retire, like they retire at 60, they retire at 70, and they will say, oh, when they retire, I'm going to go see the world. But then you're really tired when you're old. You don't have the energy for that. And like in Tim Ferriss's book, he talks about mini retirements, and it's a really interesting topic. It's like, so you can take like a month, 2 months out, maybe even like a year if possible, where you like just go and travel or do whatever you want, like away from like traditional like work or whatever you're focusing on, to like just do things that you enjoy. Like I remember he talking about how like he would just spend like 2 hours a day going to like salsa lessons or something.
Love that.
It's like it's like just finding because then once you it's just really interesting to think about.
I totally agree. Like, like before, like I keep mentioning A levels, I'm sorry, but it was just a traumatic experience in my life, so I just need to keep bringing it up. But like during A levels, I swear to God, I would work. I don't know how I used to do this. I'd work for the whole day. I'd do nothing. I'd eat maybe like for an hour or something, and for dinner, etc. I didn't like just not eat, but other than the whole essentials, that's all I did. And that drove me insane. I was burnt out, was unmotivated, didn't know what I was doing. Having those like, mini vacations, like I make sure that, like I go out for a walk every day, just because it's for your own sanity, and like also just doing something you enjoy every day. Like I think that's important. Having a hobby there where you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna chill and I'm just gonna do it because it makes me happy. You owe it to yourself to be happy. You don't have to justify it. Like I think it's important that you have like periods of time in the day where you're just like gonna switch off and do something you enjoy, because that will help you like, ease into your productive phase of work. And yeah, just like I say, go with the vibes. Like you just have to go with the vibes.
This is go on, Luke, sorry.
No, please, Alex.
Okay, I was just gonna say there's this guy on YouTube called Kelly, and his whole tagline is "Do what excites," and I feel that's just such a nice mindset, like to be into. Is like to put your focus onto things that excite you, that make you like jump out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, definitely.
I think one of the big issues is that when you're like when everyone around you is making all these big decisions, like you mentioned, like with universities, and I think even now as a third year, with everyone around you, picking their masters and what they want to do next in life, is very scary, because I'm like very much the opposite right now. It's like, well, I don't want to make these big decisions right now. And I think the problem is that because you have that pressure from others around you working all the time, it just makes you feel like you have to work all the time, because you're like, I'm going to fall behind like all my peers. But that's not the case at all. It's like life is like a whole journey, and there's no comparisons. So, and I also really like the mini retirement. I think I might start implementing that myself. I thought that'd be really cool, because it's just so easy to get carried away with work and responsibilities. But it's good to remind yourself, like, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for someone else, like others around me? Like, am I working this hard for me?
Like, I don't know, when like lecturers send you like an email saying they're on leave, like we should just have like a mini retirement email where like if someone tries to email you or message you, you just get an automatic message like, sorry, mini retirement, like.
I think
that should be a thing, like, it's I sorry, I feel like I interrupted both of you then. Go on.
No, go on. I wasn't going to say anything then.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was saying, oh yeah, like I think what you were saying, Luke, about are you doing this for me, or are you doing it for other people? I think that's really interesting, because like I just have a really big problem where I just can't say no. I feel bad, like I feel guilty, like as if someone asks me for a favor, like, hey Hannah, have you got some free time to do this? Like I feel like inclined to do so, like I want to help out. But it's very important, it's okay to say no. Like it's really okay to say no, and take some time to yourself. Like I remember like during my internship last year with a company called Virtuoso, which basically is a startup VR company for medics to help them kind of like visualize surgeries. And he was like to me, hey, listen, Hannah, like he was super chill. He was like, listen, like if you say no, they'll be angry for like 1 minute, then they'll just literally forget, they won't care, you're not that important. I was like, whoa, okay. But it's true though, like I mean, I feel like sometimes we're just like, like they're gonna be mad at me forever, but like they're just gonna go on and find someone else to help them. And I think it's important to remember that your time is valuable, it is precious, and you should spend it on yourself first.
Quite easy to feel selfish, I think, in those situations. And you don't want to paint yourself to other people as that character that's like, oh, you only think about yourself. It's quite easy to do that and just kind of doubt yourself. So you're kind of more naturally inclined to just say yes, because you don't want to paint yourself as this like very self-absorbed person that doesn't have time for anyone else, which isn't the case at all. Like, be selfish sometimes, not all the time. But just help the people that will help you back. I think that's what friendships are for.
Only like help when you actually have the ability to help. Like if you're tired and you're stressed out, that's when hey, like I need a break. Like be reasonable with yourself. Like I just think sometimes like literally like I'll get a message and I'll be like, okay, like I'll do this, and then like I'll end up being too tired to watch a lecture because I spent too much time doing that other thing. So it's important, first of all, to prioritize yourself, get your stuff done first, then help someone else. You can't help someone else if you haven't got anything to give. If you're too tired, then you can't really help. So I think it's important, put yourself first.
Also important to realize if somebody is just coming for you for help all the time, like if someone's becoming a burden on you, because like then it kind of becomes a kind of like a toxic relationship. If someone's like coming to you like every day, like they're shoving all their problems on you, like it's not our responsibility to fix other people's problems. In reality, it's our own responsibility to fix our problems. So like I remember thinking about this a long time ago. It's like I remember reading it about it as well. If a relationship looks really one-sided, maybe just question why,
Yeah. I mean, like, also, I think, I think an important thing is, like, if you ever want to, like, rant to someone, I think, like, you should always ask them, like, hey, like, is it okay if I talk to you about something? Like, are you busy? Like, are you in the right, not like, are you in the right mental state, but just checking in. Like, I think sometimes, like, people just explode and they tell you everything. You're like, whoa, hold up a minute. Like, like, I'm not mentally in the right mind space to help someone else at the moment. So it's important just, be like, before you, like, are, like, gonna be like, hey, like, can you help me? Or if you are gonna, like, do this massive rant, there's no harm in just asking, hey, like, is it okay, like, if I just, like, talk to you about something? Are you free? Because, like, otherwise it just feels very, like you said, very one-sided and very kind of like, selfish to just, just use someone as an emotional punch bag.
I think the big thing with that is Mark Manson talks a bit about this in his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving, which is that, you know, just for example, like someone will come to you with this like emotional burden that they have, and you don't necessarily want that, like especially if you're in a great state yourself. But the problem is at that point you become responsible for it to a certain extent. So it's not like the best position to be in when someone does like start offloading. But I think the thing is like, it's not what Mark was saying anyways, it's not like you shouldn't be blamed. Like, it's not your fault that that's happening, but you still have some responsibility for it to some extent. But
yeah, I mean, I get that. I feel like, you know, if someone ever messages me and they're feeling down, I really like, even if I am feeling down, I still feel inclined to help. Like, I wouldn't want anyone to feel down. I think, you know, it's just about being reasonable again. Like, if you're not in the right mental state, then you may not have like the right advice anyway to give to that person, and you may not be able to help them properly. So it's just important to like, even if you want to help, sometimes like you're gonna be at your like best ability to help when you've looked after yourself. So that's why it even like, if you just think about it completely logically, it makes more sense to just look after yourself first so that you can look after others. So I think about it more like that. But yeah.
kind of think in that kind of sense as well when it comes to studying and taking breaks, is that when you're taking a break from work, you're not working per se, but that break will allow you to work better later. So you're necessarily not taking a break at all in the first place, which is kind of like what helped me initially when I was making my switch back to actually living my life from from working all the time, you know. So I think it's a good mindset to have.
Yeah, like also just lack of sleep, you know, like this whole it's a really bad mindset to have, like you shouldn't sleep so that you can work hard, yada yada yada. Like, that's really bad. Like, I don't know, like in neuroscience, like recently I had a lecture on sleep, right? And it was like, even just a short nap can improve memory consolidation, just a short nap. And that just comes to show how important sleep is, and that it shouldn't be neglected. Like, I was literally about to like, it was kind of like I could use it as an excuse, like, no, I'm not going to stay up until like late to watch this lecture, I'm going to sleep because it's good for memory consolidation. But like, yeah, like, it's important. Like, I mean, we kind of hear these cliches all the time, make sure you sleep, make sure you eat healthy, yada yada yada, but like, they are actually important. It's not just like people are saying it for the sake of saying it. Like, they are genuinely important for your health, and they will actually help you be more productive than, you know, just neglecting your health and just being tired and a zombie and grumpy and, you know, yeah. You just need to like figure that out for yourself instead of like trying to follow this kind of rigid structure of, you know, what is an ideal way to live a happy and healthy life, because it's different for different people. And like, you know, some things work for, like, you know, meditation works for some people, it doesn't work for other people. Like, I think, you know, you shouldn't try and like enforce this kind of like standardized rigid way of what health is. It's different for different people. And like, yeah, I think that's really important.
I'm quite a big advocate of like a very chaotic lifestyle. It sounds quite bad, but when it comes to like my day, I don't like to plan my day out into like structures. Like, I'll understand like briefly in my mind like what I need to do that day, and I'll sort of make like a mental image.
Yeah.
And I'll have like a list of things I need to do. But the thing is, like, if I'm in like a good mindset where I want to, like, I don't know, memorize some vocab for a language, but I wrote it down in my schedule that I had to do lectures at that time. I would just do what I wanted to do at that time anyway, because it's a lot more enjoyable and I feel like it's a lot more productive. And then when I'm in a mood like down the line where I'm like, oh, I feel like doing a lecture right now, it just makes the whole like studying and learning process a lot easier, I find, than sticking to a schedule that's probably going to annoy you.
Yeah, definitely. I totally get that. Like, there are some times where I look at my schedule and I see lecture, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not in the mood for that. Like, I think, you know, again, it's just like, you don't have to rely on rigidity, and getting used to being flexible. I think that's really important. Like, I don't know, like the other day, like I saw on my schedule, I had to do a lecture on like, I don't know, like neuroimaging techniques. Oh my gosh, I really don't want to do that right now. So I decided to just, you know, like read an article on just eating disorders and anxiety. And like, it's like, you just have to like remember, like, if you're feeling in the right mood to do something, you know, just listen to your gut sometimes. Like, you know, I think we don't listen to it enough. Follow your gut. There you go. That's my end quote.
Would be like a bit careful though, because if you're like consistently avoiding something, then that's always probably a good sign that what you're doing probably isn't something you should be doing, because you're not enjoying it at all. But I guess at the same time, you also got to like weigh out the risks and rewards. You know, oh, like I don't like this module I'm doing, but I kind of enjoy everything else I'm doing. So I'll just get through this so that I can enjoy the rest of my uni fine.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Good to keep an eye out for that, I think.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Don't follow your gut all the time. Follow it within reason.
It's such a hard thing to balance, though. I think everything's like that. You just have to get a good balance of everything. Like we mentioned, like social media before, you know, like work-life balance. It's like everything's a balance. It's just very, very like, I don't know, nature be like that, I guess. It's interesting.
And I think, you know, you're not always going to get the right balance right away. You know, like it's going to be like, you know, you're going to have to like try out new things. I think, you know, like sometimes, like for me, for example, like I used to try and wake up at 7 a.m. I just couldn't do it. Like I tried, but I was always so tired. Like it just didn't work for me. And it's like, you know, like like you said, like some people wake up 4 a.m. It may work for them, but you know, you have to realize that doesn't work for you and trying something else until you find the thing that does work for you. I think is quite helpful.
I think we're reaching like the hour mark now for the recording, which is kind of scary. But I guess any like obviously we'll link everything that Hannah has put out content wise onto the show notes, and be sure to check that out. It's got some great stuff. Read all of it if you can. But I guess just like any like concluding remarks, or what I'm interested to know as well is, because I've been reading a lot more recently. Have you got any like really good book recommendations or something that you read recently that was like, wow?
You know, recently I've kind of looked into the whole Kaizen philosophy. I don't know whether you've come across it before or not. So like basically Kaizen was a philosophy developed in Japan after the end of World War II. Japan, you know, Japan's economy was, you know, very, very, you know, broke because of after, you know, the sanctions placed on Japan. And so and in America, the whole idea of kind of like developing their economy and developing society was, you know, just to put loads and loads of effort and just get it done all at once, get it done as quickly as possible. Whereas in the Kaizen philosophy, the idea is to take things and break things down step by step and then check to see if they work. And if they don't work, go back and change those things instead of trying to, you know, go from A to B and then realizing B is all wrong and then going all the way back to A. You could have like loads and loads and loads of things in between. And therefore you can see whether things are working or not. And I find that, you know, really helpful for me instead of trying to, you know, jump. I think we've kind of mentioned this already, but, you know, instead of jumping from one thing to another and expecting it to be perfect, just, you know, breaking things down into small steps. If you want to learn how to, I don't know, like play the cello, I don't know why that came to my mind, but, you know, the first thing is, I don't know, get a cello. That could be your first goal. The second goal will be, okay, let me see if there are any teachers online. That's your second goal. So breaking things down and, you know, going back and checking, okay, sorry, kind of bumped into that one and checking and checking to see like if that works for you. I think I'd quite like that. Actually, I have a book, but I mean, give me a second.
Interesting, like that philosophy, because the only really philosophy that I've been looking into recently is Stoicism, and that kind of stems from the meditations, which has been a really helpful mindset for me. But I still feel like there's like a lot in terms of, because I guess Stoicism itself is about being indifferent to what's happening around you, but I still think it's quite important to feel those emotions and experience them to kind of decide if you want them to have any meaning to you. So it's kind of an interesting thing for me at the minute.
Yeah, but I feel like you should always take Stoicism with like a pinch of salt. I think it's just not possible to me to just be completely oblivious to the world and oblivious to other people's opinions. And I think if you are that oblivious, then you end up missing out on learning from other people, and I think that's important too. But the book, I found it. It's this
awesome
book. It's just a cute little book. It's by Sarah Harvey.
What was the name for our no video listeners?
Huh?
What was the name of the book for our no video listeners?
It's literally called Kaizen, the Japanese method for transforming habits one small step at a time.
Definitely small steps, guys. That's the motto of this episode.
Yeah, small steps.
Awesome. Okay. Alex, anything else to say?
No, other than thanks a lot to Hannah for coming along. And
yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, so Alex, if you want to give the outro.
So thanks a lot for listening, everyone. Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Hannah, for joining us. We hope you did enjoy it. If you did enjoy the episode, make sure to like, review, rate, subscribe to podcasts, especially on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that. Feel free to reach out to us at our email in the show notes down below. We'll link in the show notes all of Hannah's stuff as well, her Instagram, her blog. Is there any other stuff you want us to link down below?
No, I think that's all. Thanks.
Cool. All right. Thanks a lot for listening, everyone. If you're listening on audio, we are also on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, we're also on audio podcast platforms. So thanks a lot for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Awesome.